Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I am so excited to be joined by one of the stars of the upcoming film Consumed, Courtney Halverson, who plays Beth. Courtney, thank you for being here with me today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine, and I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'm going to jump right into some questions. But first and foremost, really enjoyed the film, had a very kind of Predator vibe to it, which I really enjoyed. So I can't wait for folks to see it, and we'll be putting up our review in the coming week. But I'm curious to know how you prepared for the role of Beth.
Yeah, I mean, this is I think once you've seen the film or even seen the trailer, it's a very physical role. So for me, that was definitely a challenge. This was my more physical role for this one. So we, did a little bit of training on this one, but really it was a lot of just dive into the woods and hope for the best. Yeah, this was a fun one for me.
Yeah, I was actually warning about filming out in kind of the wild, right? You know, a lot of times we aren't always privy to how the films are made, so it's hard sometimes to tell if it's on a sound stage or if they're actually working out, on location. But unless, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it looks like everything was for the most part filmed on location. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is a real case of what you see is what you get. I think, there's so many films I'm used to seeing and just, you can kind of see the edge where it suddenly turns into a backdrop or that maybe there's a parking lot not far. This was one where when we were shooting, we really were in the woods. It was really a truly immersive experience, not only for myself being in the cast, but also our crew was just, right there alongside us in the mud and in the sticks and the branches and the uneven ground and all of that.
And is that something that you had done previously? Was this kind of a new foray for you? And were there any kind of snags or challenges that came up along the way?
I've shot in some pretty remote places, including like in Alaska is probably about as remote as you can get in a lot of ways. So I've definitely had my fair share of time in the woods, not for this extent of time. So this was something where you look at the script and I knew I was going to be in every single day, and almost all of those days are going to be in the woods. So it in a lot of ways felt like being in camp, but in a much more horrifying camp situation.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I want to send myself or my children to this camp, but nevertheless, it would be a good experience for survival purposes. Let's say that much.
Yeah, yeah, it's right up there with like Camp Crystal Lake. Like I maybe wouldn't send my kids there, but they'll come back with some great skills.
Yeah, exactly. They won't be dying anytime soon, at least from
Yeah.
not natural causes. So, I know you've done a lot of work in the genre before. You mentioned doing work in Alaska. Probably having to do with the true crimes, sorry, the True Detective series you're a part of. So I'm curious, kind of how your previous work in genre film has kind of impacted or informed the way you approach the role in Consumed.
Yeah, I mean, I've been I always say I've been fortunate enough to have worked in a lot of thriller and suspense and specifically horror films. And it's the genre that I always come back to. I think it's the most, and I think people are sometimes surprised to hear this, but it seems to be like the most close-knit and giving community of really a lot of people, if you're a fan of horror, you're not casually a fan of horror. You love it. And I think that's what's so amazing about it. Um, yeah, this was a different beast for me though. This was definitely something where as much as there is a horror element to this script, obviously it's a creature film. There's a lot of themes that are not as often explored. I think a lot of grief and loss in this film that I think is really tangible from the very beginning, and not just with my character. You really feel it throughout, kind of woven into the script.
Yeah, I actually noticed that it's quite commendable how authentic the performances feel, considering the gravity of the situation that the film opens with, especially some of the imagery of the nightmarish kind of visions that you have when you're sleeping. Some of that stuff
Yeah.
still sticks with me. Um, and I'm curious how you kind of built that bond because it does require a lot of intimacy and a lot of really kind of vulnerability. So I'm curious how you both prepared to kind of step into that with each
Yeah.
other.
So for this one, the vulnerability is definitely there. Not even, just in the characters, but in something where, it really is, for the most part, myself and another actor in the woods. And there's not a lot to hide behind. There's not, costume changes and new locations and a ton of CGI and things like that. A lot of it is really character driven. And so I was very, very fortunate to get to work alongside Devon Sawa, who's obviously an incredible actor, but specifically, he is so well known in the horror genre. He can so easily look at a script, and I watched him do this. I watched him look at something on the page and see how much further he could take the character and how much further we could take the
Oh,
scene together. And so, a lot of trust goes into that, and there's a lot of, like you said, intimacy in that. But he was someone that I felt immediately safe and comfortable with, in really pushing the envelope in some of these scenes.
yeah. I mean, it all shows up. Once Devin comes on the scene as Quinn, the film really takes a different turn, but
Yeah.
a supremely entertaining one. And
Yeah.
you've had a lot of experience on different sizes of cast. Obviously, Consumed is a much smaller film as far as there's really only three characters. So I'm curious from your kind of experience, do you find that there is a difference in regards to working in a smaller set versus a larger one? And do you have a preference?
Yeah, there's definitely a massive difference. I think mostly because for me, there's no question of, well, how did that scene go yesterday? Or like, what were you guys working on yesterday? Or, tell me all about filming that. For the most part, all of us were there. I mean, we really, there's no part of the film that we weren't there seeing happen, with the exception of some of the stunts or maybe some of the post-production. Um, so you really feel it's all hands on deck, not just between the cast, but between the crew as well. You really feel like everyone's very much a part of everything. And that's nice too, because there's a sense of ownership there. In terms of like, if I have a preference between a larger cast and a smaller cast, no, I've had the fortune of working on some smaller cast projects, including Unfriended. That's one where there's just a handful of characters that you see from the very beginning, and that's really all you're getting. And so that those performances, I think, as an actor, you know that you're going to really get a lot of time with each person, and to get to know them and to really get to try some new things. It would, on a TV show where you're maybe popping in and out, there's maybe a little less time to really explore those relationships.
Yeah, I definitely would. I imagine there probably wasn't a big major preference because work is work, especially if it's good work. But at the
Truly.
same time, you've demonstrated that you're kind of more than capable and quite successful in both arenas. So, my last question is one of my favorite ones to ask folks. And if you were programming a double feature and Consumed was one of the films, what other film would you place alongside it?
Wow. Oh man. I mean, look, if it's me doing it, and this is just because I think it would be a really fun progression to see, I would put Consumed, and then Casper side by side, because I just think it's fun to see Devin go from being the sweetest boy that everyone was in love with in the 90s to just this absolute powerhouse performer. I think that would be a really good side by side.
You know what? I think a lot of people would agree with you to see the
Yeah.
progression of Sawa for over the years. Um, and certainly they share themes of, spirituality in some loose sense.
Yes,
But
exactly.
but Courtney, that's all the questions I have for you. And I just want to say again, thank you so much for the time. For everyone watching this, please make it out to your theaters on August 16th to check out Consume. This is definitely be a lot of fun with folks around you. And if for whatever reason you can't make it to a theater, you have no excuse. This will be on digital on demand same day. So thank you again, Courtney. Good luck with the rest of the interviews. And thank you so much for the time.
Thank you so much, Matt.
All right. Hello, fiends, friends, and familiars. This is Matt Orozco from Macabre Daily, and I am beyond excited to be joined by the Butcher Brothers, the directing producing duo of Mitchell Altieri and Phil Flores, who have a new film coming out August 16th, Consumed, from Brainstorm Media and XYZ Films. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Sure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Trust me, I just got done speaking with Courtney not too long ago and told her how much I enjoyed Consume. So I can't wait for everyone to see it. But I know we don't have all the time in the world, so I'm just going to dive right into some questions. But my first one, I thought the location you all filmed in was absolutely beautiful. I was wondering, where did you film it and what was that experience like?
Where, Phil, what's the name of the park?
We shot in New Jersey, the Wawayanda State Park. And then we shot on a stage a couple weeks later.
That was New Jersey?
Yeah, right. I mean, that doesn't look like New Jersey. That Wendigo didn't have an accent. Yeah, it was a really actually it's vast. I mean, New Jersey is just all forest. It's called the Garden State for a reason. It's all green. Yeah, we camped out in that, not literally, but we shot in that park for many weeks.
Yeah, yeah. It was intense. It was intense. Mosquitoes, brown bears, you name it. It was just the elements were, the beauty was worth it, but the elements, yeah, it's, as we said, we were talking about this earlier. It's like, you kind of forget, like, the sun goes down, it's pitch black out there. Like, there's
Right.
not at all. Like, once the sun goes down, if you're not with the crew, you're lost.
Yeah, and I know that filming outdoors, where you don't have control over the elements and things like that, can always present kind of a hiccup here and there. But somewhat of a kind of a small kind of aesthetic question is, were those shots of the sky real? Because I've never seen that many stars. But then again, maybe I'm going to the wrong park. So I was just curious, the beautiful kind of shots you all have of Courtney, Beth looking up into the sky, full of stars, almost galaxy-like. So I was wondering if that was something you added in, or if that was actually what you all were seeing out there in the wilderness.
Well, the stars were very beautiful out there, but we had to amplify it just a little bit to get that. But you do forget, living in the cities and whatnot. When you're out there, it's intense. You're looking up and you're like, "Whoa, I forgot that the sky is like." I mean, it's it's just like packed. Where here you get the little dots and whatnot, but.
As an Arizona resident, or at least born in Arizona, I remember the skies always presented a beautiful landscape, but the rest of it was quite treacherous. So moving on from locations, though, I'm curious to know how you both got involved with the film and the script, because I know you both have a history in the genre, films like The Hamiltons, for example. So wondering how you all got involved with Consume in the first place.
So we, through our producing partner, Jeff Allard, who did, he did the reboots. He was the executive producer for the reboot of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 2003 and 2006 versions. And through him, we met David Calvert, who's the writer, and we just fell in love with the script, and as luck would have it, he was also a huge fan of the Hamiltons. A film that we did many moons ago, but he admitted that it was something that inspired him to get into filmmaking.
That's amazing, kind of how that all comes back around, and those inspirations, leave little trails to follow.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I couldn't help but notice kind of a heavy little Predator influence, both the first one and the sequel. And I'm curious to know what approach you all took for the creature design. I want to avoid as many spoilers as possible, but there's a pretty unique and gnarly look at this thing. So I'm wondering, what was the process? Who did you work with on that? And did you have a bunch of iterations you went through before you arrived at a final product, or was it all kind of already there up in the mind's eye?
So David really had this like description of this creature that was really unique, on page. And then I think, it did evolve, just as you're saying, once you kind of get the Butcher Brothers involved and you get, a kick-ass SFX team involved, and then it just, you kind of go through it and then, we landed on the creature. But, the idea wasn't, was really heavily influenced by this idea that, the film is really about Beth's battle with cancer and what she's going through. So we didn't want to, we want to have that influence the visual look of the creature as well. Wouldn't you agree, Phil?
Yeah, I think what David embodied in the story for the Wendigo is, it's a cannibal. It eats you from within, and that was an analogy for the cancer as well. So he made this really cool elevated creature feature immediately out of the gate that. I think from what I remember, he was coming out. It's like, hey, let's do this thing practical, and Mitch was on the same space. Like, this would be a really cool thing to do practical, and that's how we tried to approach the entire film. We gave a little bit of a touch. There's a little bit. If you watch the film, you'll see that there's a new space that along the process of it, we found a shape for the entirety of it, which was pretty cool because on the script, in the script itself, there's so many layers there, like Mitch is saying, but through the editing process, we found like through Beth's journey that it wasn't just physical. There's a mental thing happening as well that kind of created this cosmic horror storyline that adds to the effects of the creature. So yeah, it was never trying to be a straightforward Wendigo story. It was trying to be something that was a metaphor. And we had a wonderful people that were supporting us. And Mitch had this really incredible vision to turn this into something extraordinary, really, to change it and to have it reflect Beth's fear, physical fear.
Well, there are some deeply unsettling and unforgettable imagery, especially for kind of the mastectomy breast cancer element. Some things I will never forget as far as how you all visually portrayed Beth's nightmares. And given you both have done so much work in the genre, I'm not ashamed to admit I'm a massive fan of The Night Watchman. I believe more people need to see it. It's because it's a whole bunch of fun. But I'm curious to know how your previous genre work over the past decade plus has informed and contributed to the work you did here and Consumed. Lessons learned, things you've applied that you wouldn't have done in a previous role.
Oof. That's you're absolutely right. You take every lesson that you have, right? And by each film, you get better and you kind of know what's going on. But it's amazing how just something new, a new issue pops up, and you're just like, how did we not know how to deal with this? And Phil and I have been working together, and so there's something to be said about having two of us that makes things a lot easier. But even with all the experience, making a film is just so difficult in so many different ways.
Yeah, there's so many fires thrown at you consistently. On this one was fun because I got to come on as a producer strictly, and which is nice because I can see all the things happening as they happen, and the fires can be put out, and I can have the experience to know, oh, I know what Mitch needs. He needs this right now. And we've been working for so long together. We have this pretty amazing shorthand that I can usually know what he's thinking. It's almost 100%. And so, like, if there's something missing, or this day the actor's is gone, or our set's destroyed by whatever. Okay, how do we get around that? So I'm thinking ahead of time, and that's creatively we've been writing, directing together forever. Producing, we're always producing most of our own projects, but I usually don't come on as just a singular producer. So that was really beneficial, I thought, to add to the quality of the film.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, into just a quick add to what Phil's saying, and then this literally having an extra director on set that everybody's comfortable with and knows, and they could talk to him. That's just that's a it helps so much.
Yeah, I've interviewed a few folks in the past. There's a few gentlemen out of Italy, even they call themselves T3, that they're kind of a trio of directors working together. But it seems becoming more common that it's always been done, I think, but just not formally named. So I think the fact that you all have found this kind of good kinship and continue to elevate and grow the relationship and the productions that you're working on, it certainly shows through the work. And as far as challenging and rewarding, I know obviously filming in the elements presents its own set of challenges, but is there anything specifically that stuck out as far as a huge hurdle you all overcame? And then on the other side of that question, what was the most rewarding part of the process? Of course, aside from having a completed film, was there anything else that stands out as being, wow, we were really glad that this turned out that way, or we didn't think it was going to go as well as it did?
Well, I'll start. As the first part of the question, for me, you do tend to forget that what I was saying is, like, the sun goes down and it's pitch black out there. Like, pitch black. You do not know where you're going. If you get lost, you're lost. Like, I'd say for me, it's always watching the actors, when you see them engage and hit, and they're really in that particular moment, and not just, we're obviously talking about a very talented cast of actors that have a lot of movies under their belt, but when they connect, but they are speaking what the story actually is, or not just performing their, great talents, but they're bringing the story to life. To me, that's one of the most rewarding things on set. As you said, watching the movie on a screen, of course, but.
About you, Phil?
Oh gosh, yeah, I think the hurdle is the reward. It's learning from each film what not even mistakes. Like you're gonna make some mistakes, of course, if you don't have the experience. That just comes with it. But it's learning like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and then how to work around it. That becomes like the fun part. It's completely stressful in the moment, but if you've got pretty level-headed people, it's not too hard. You have to you just work this teamwork, and being the Butcher Brothers, we come from a collaborative space, so we tend to emanate that within our crew and our cast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's reward is kind of so subjective, right? So it's always interesting to hear how people kind of reconcile the success they're seeing and what that looks like. And it is hard to see it in the moment sometimes, so reflection can always be a huge benefit. Just a couple last questions for you. One of my favorite ones to ask is, if you're programming a double feature, and I guess this is for each of you, right? So you might have different picks here, but you're programming a double feature and Consumed is one of the films. What's the other film you're pairing with Consumed?
If it's a double feature and people want to kind of feel in the same, you want to be in the same vibe for both films, I'd probably say The Descent, would be a good coupling. That was a big inspiration for David writing this film. It's a, one of my top 10 horror picks.
Wow, you, Phil.
Oh yeah, gosh. I think Mitch had talked about this a lot, but Jaws was a big draw for David and himself to create the film. So Jaws would be a good one.
Oh, I love that. It's funny. Courtney said Casper, and I thought that'd be great, to see the evolution of Sawa over time.
Well, yeah, Courtney's a lot smarter than we are.
Well, the good thing about the question, there's no wrong answers. So
yeah.
The last one for you before we head out of here is anything you all are working on next? I know you've done a lot of genre work, so I know folks that listen and read our site would be curious to know what's next.
Yeah, we're actively developing two projects right now. I mean, honestly, we're always developing stuff, we're working on stuff, but right now we have two things that we're really excited about. And we're hoping that they next year we're doing one of them.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for the time. We'll be keeping our eyes out for more Butcher Brothers productions and films coming in the future. And for everyone watching this, please make it to your theaters on August 16th to go check out Consume. This is absolutely something you should see with other people. And if for whatever reason you can't make it to a theater, you have no excuse, because it's going to be available on digital on demand. So you can rent it and enjoy it from the comfort of your home and not lose your skin. So Mithcell, Phil, thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it. Congratulations on the film, and really looking forward to whatever you both are cooking up next.
Right on.
Thank you so much.
Okay, man.